It's 7 p.m. here in historic Town Hall, January 16th, 2025. As we convene, I'd just like to remind the people here and at home that we are being televised and recorded by Sandwich Community Television. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is anybody here for public comment? Okay. Review and update, review and approval of the minutes from January 9th, 2025.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2025. There was an omission of when Chairman Holden opened the meeting. He asked for a moment of silence. And remember, former Police Chief Whearty, and he also had added President Carter to it, and that is not in there. So we just add that to it. Okay?
Yep. Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner, as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Town manager report.
Several of the items we're going to talk about later tonight, so I'll try to keep it brief. Our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight on the 30th, with the primary focus being the budget presentation. There's a couple smaller things we have after that, but we're trying to keep it focused on that. Just so the board and the finance committee meets the Tuesday after, which I believe is February 4th, and that will be our budget presentation to them. Just so the board's aware, on Monday, January 27th, which is 2 Mondays from today, the offices at 100 Route 6A are going to be closed to the public until 10:30 a.m. So we're closing for 2 hours in the morning for some organized safety training, and then we'll open up at 10:30 to the public. And then lastly, I just wanted to report yesterday, David Noble, who's the owner and operator of In Good Health, dropped off a $200,000 donation to fund our school resource officer program for the upcoming fiscal year. So really want to thank him for dropping that off. We sort of said roughly the time frame we needed it in to be able to include it in our budget. And he made sure that we had it. And we're in the process of trying to rewrite the host community agreement. I think as the board's aware, the Cannabis Control Commission changed so many regulations. Our current HCA isn't valid. So as part of that, we want to try to include a donation agreement portion of that, which is not binding, but we really appreciate it. And I think the intent there is to continue that moving forward. So, hopefully we can work that out before we have to vote the final budget. It would be nice to get that done. And that's really it.
Thank you. Correspondence, statements, and announcements. Anybody?
Heather and I were on the Commission with Disability call last night. They had a gentleman from the state there going through some key changes and things that the town can do moving forward to assist them, and I would say there was a pretty well-received collaborative meeting.
Great, thank you. I have just a couple. Sandwich Public Schools, the Strategic Planning Group met to begin work on the next 5-year plan. The group consists of about 40 individuals, including a moderator, Sandwich Public School administration, faculty, parents, and students. Progress. The next meeting of the full planning team is scheduled for February 26th. Sandwich Public Schools will keep the community advised. School committee was yesterday as well. A contemporary determination developed by the Sandwich Public Schools for high school graduation was presented in final form and adopted. The school advisory committee will hold a public session in conjunction with the next school committee meeting on January 29th. On the the fiscal 2026 school operating budgets continued to be made public. Please be reminded, presentations to the Select Board and the Finance Committee are scheduled for the near future. And then this morning, School Safety Committee, recent drills were critiqued, future drills and additional items to address were discussed. Progress. And that's all I have for the time being. So, if we could move on to a public hearing. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 59, the Sandwich Select Board will hold a hearing on Thursday, January 16th, 2025, at 7:05 p.m. in the historic Sandwich Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Mass. 02563, on the application of John Patton for a Class II used car dealer's license to be operated at 331 Cotuit Road, Unit 12, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563. Any person wishing to be heard on this subject will be afforded an opportunity to speak at that time.
Make a motion, we open the hearing.
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hochter. A roll call in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Is anyone here? Good evening. State your name, please.
I'm John Patton.
Hey, John, can you just make sure the green light's on and pull this?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Okay, what would you like to accomplish, sir?
I am a contractor with Avis Budget and Budget Car and Budget Truck Rental, and what I'm trying to do is just sell their used trucks mainly. Nothing's going to be stored here. It's not going to be an open public lot. Nobody can come buy a car or anything like that. It's just to complete paperwork for the company that I contract with.
Thank you. Sounds straightforward. Does anybody in the public have any comment or questions? Any questions? The application is complete, and we have no issues that we're aware of?
Typically, the board, on all the other used car dealer licenses, there's like 4 conditions, which I put a copy of in the packet. And I think you're aware of those. It's just, because sometimes these are in neighborhoods, this one is not, but sometimes it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, so. And all the department heads that looked at it are fine with the application.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hochter. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
Okay. Make a motion, we grant a Class II used car dealer license to Cape Cod Auto Transporters Incorporated, 331 Cotuit Road, Unit 12, John Patton.
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hochter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Congratulations, best wishes for success.
Thank you.
Okay, staff meeting, Department of Public Works, Fire Department Substation Project Presentation, update on work efforts, conceptual plan, ongoing analysis, future actions.
There it was. Yeah.
There we go.
So you get me to begin with, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
I'd like to introduce the presentation, if that's okay.
Please.
So just a few things. First of all, this is an update. There's no decisions expected by the board. Certainly as many questions as you have would be most welcome, but really this is an update on the progress that the committee's made over the better part of a year. And the first thing we really want to do is recognize the people that have been involved in this process, starting with Select Board Chair Holden, Select Board Member Patrick Ellis, Finance Committee Member Matt Anderson, myself and Bud, and of course Paul and Chief Burke have been working on this development of this phase of the project since last December. And it really, as always, we have a really excellent, dedicated group of people, and particularly the knowledge of our Finance Committee and Select Board members, because of their unique professional experience, has been incredibly helpful to the committee in decision-making. And what you'll see is an end product, but I can assure you that it was very challenging to get to this point. There were tens of conceptual designs and really deep questioning that led to a final presentation this evening, and I'll leave some of those details for the future speakers. But we will talk a little bit about the needs, but recognizing that this project, the fire substation, DPW, at a single location is the last big building project need of the town. There are no additional new buildings that we see in generations for the town of Sandwich. It's been in the works for several years, for at least 5 years. Back in March of 2020, the town approved $25,000 for an initial feasibility study. We engaged Weston and Sampson, and Paul worked with his staff, and I believe Matt was helpful with that process, so he's been in this very deeply since 2020. And then as a result of that analysis, which was a study of improvements to the DPW facility, it was determined that the recommendation for a shared use site for a fire substation, relocating Station 1 from the Route 6A location to a shared site at the current DPW site was the recommendation. That was presented to the May 2023 town meeting after a final report was prepared, and town meeting voted an additional $300,000 to advance the design to the schematic design phase that you'll see this evening. So this has been in the works for quite some time. It's not new on the horizon. There's been an awful lot of work on it. And I just have to say, the two department heads that are responsible for establishing the needs, and I'd say especially the Department of Public Works, has really subordinated their needs and priorities to the other needs of the town for an awfully long time. And when you take a look at the Public Works facility, particularly, the needs are quite acute for their operation. And then, of course, with the fire substation, it's located in a very a location that's susceptible to high flooding. So it really is not responsible for the long term to sustain public safety operations from that location. I do want to just note that the needs associated with both of those facilities are not related to a lack of facilities maintenance. I think you'll see in some of the slides that they do a really tremendous job with what they have in terms of maintaining it, maintaining operations. They are aged facilities. And the needs really relate to the needs for operations, the age of the facilities, and the need for modern code compliance, and really the essence of safety compliance for our public personnel. So I will turn it over at this point to Mr. Tilton and Chief Burke, and Paul will start first with an overview of the needs for the DPW.
Thank you for that introduction, Heather. I also want to echo what Heather said about thanking everybody involved with this project, the consultants and the project team. They brought a lot of good expertise and providing good input throughout, so appreciate the effort on their part. I also have spent time talking to my peers and visiting newer facilities on Cape Cod. I think it was very helpful talking to them and seeing these facilities, sort of compare where we are and where we want to be as a DPW facility, to be able to provide the critical services that the public deserve. So what I want to do is kind of walk you through a few areas of the DPW. A lot of you have had tours. The tours certainly speak for themselves. So what I'm going to show you tonight is sort of a virtual tour, some photos, some of the deficiencies we have, some of the limitations we have as well as at the facility. So I'm going to start off with this aerial, which is pretty representative of what's going on at our facility in terms of the constraints and limitations we have. The big building in the middle, it's the barn and the garage, a couple names for it. It was built in 1972. It's about 53 years old. And the building simply doesn't meet the demands of modern-day DPW operations today. Back when that was built in 72, there was 4,600 people in the town of Sandwich. I don't think anybody really expected us to blossom to 20,000 people. And I suspect at the time, back in 1972, this was a facility with an appropriate size. But potentially some future expansion as well. But we're at the point now with more residents. We have expanded infrastructure. We have more responsibilities. We have more demands as well because of the growth of the town. Also important to note, equipment, vehicles, and technology have changed significantly over the years. The storms have changed, they're more intense. We're seeing more severe storms than we've ever seen. And our emergency response demands are higher than they've ever been. We're also on call 24 hours per day for emergencies, whether it's related to storms, downed trees, road repairs, or simply support of the fire and police department for their incidents. One of the biggest issues we have is limited storage, and you'll see throughout this report what some of our issues are. And storage related to vehicles, vehicle maintenance, equipment, and employee spaces is all deficient. So I'm going to sort of take you on a tour going clockwise on this facility right here. And to the left of the main building, the white structure, that's the fuel depot. That was built about 30 years ago. We used to have underground storage tanks, but those are above the ground, obviously. It's 30 years old. It's used by over 175 employees in the town, town and school officials as well. So it's an active facility, a lot going on there. Sometimes it can be difficult for us to maneuver in and out of our site when there's other vehicles using the depot. Moving up from there, you see that green building next to that white pickup truck. That was the old animal control building. We've been using that for the park shed. And unfortunately, based upon a recent inspection, we really have to abandon that because there's mold on the inside of it. The roof is leaking, it's damaging our equipment, and structurally it's not sound. So it doesn't really make sense to pump any more money into that facility. Moving up from there around 10 o'clock is our material storage area. Very limited, probably about a third of what we need. And unfortunately, we can't stockpile our materials there. So we have to go to a place like PA Landers pretty much every day for our projects to pick up materials. To the north, about 12 noon is, I guess, our relatively new salt shed that's 21 years old. But even that has some roof problems, and we need to fix that because it's leaking. To the right of that, at about 1 o'clock, that green shed, that's our oldest salt shed, 41 years old. And I'll show you a photo a little bit later on that shows some of the issues we have with that facilities. But that's really experienced a lot of wear and tear over the years. To the right, by the landfill, is where we store our plows. Unfortunately, we don't have space within our garage to store the plows. We also have a holding tank in that area, so when we wash our vehicles, that's where the water goes. So that gives you a sort of an overview of the limitations we have and the constraints of our facility. Let me see if I can do this.
Oop. I did it.
You did it? So did
That's
I.
me.
Went too far.
You got it.
So this is our sort of our exterior issues we have. There's many more than these, but these are just some of them. As I mentioned, the facility on the left, that shed, that's the park shed, and we really need to abandon that. You can see the roof has holes everywhere, and it just leaks like a sieve. The middle photo shows the rusted metal at the base of the barn, and that's pretty much throughout our base. It has easy access for rodents to get in and out. So obviously an issue with that that location to the right shows the old salt shed, that 41-year-old salt shed. And as you can see, that the lateral pressure from the salt over the years is pushing that wall out. So eventually we'd have to repair something like that. And at this point, I'm not sure if it's financially feasible to actually do that because it could be very expensive. Next slide. This is the interior of the garage, and currently it doesn't meet many building codes in many aspects. There's poor ventilation, we have inadequate plumbing, we have asbestos tiles. The facilities department spent a lot of time down there. They've been down there more frequently, making repairs or mainly Band-Aids on this facility. The building really has become a drain on town staff, time, and money as well. Next slide, please. So just to show you some of our storage areas or lack of storage areas. It's really a major hindrance throughout the facility. We recently performed a safety audit, sort of outside of this study. The consultant identified 40 hazard locations with 130 recommended actions. And unfortunately, some of their actions are not feasible because we need more space to do it. And we'd have to pump a lot of money into the facility to do that. So instead of that, we put up a lot of warning signs identifying the hazards for the public and our staff as well to either avoid these areas or take caution when they're near these areas. So the photo on the left, that is our chemical storage area. A real confined space and not the best area for containment. We do have spill pallets underneath, but there's really only so much we can do with that facility, really tight. To the upper right, that's our mechanic cage and his work area. Just, again, a lot of materials there, equipment, tools, and just a real tight squeeze for him to work within. The bottom right, that shows our heating and ventilation system, and also our second floor storage, which is really at capacity right now. Really can't put anything else up there at this point. Next slide, please. So the vehicle storage is one of the most prominent issues that we have at our facility. And if you look at the upper left, that shows the narrow passageway we have to get through the barn when there's vehicles in the facility. So if I have to go from the office over to my mechanic's cage, I have to squeeze through there. It's really not safe. If anything were to happen, like a fire, for instance, just really just a result of not having enough space in this facility. The photo below that shows sort of the puzzle we have, that we pile our vehicles in there, and it's really difficult to mobilize and demobilize coming back to the facility as well. It takes time, it's not safe. It requires a lot of backing up, which inevitably leads to problems. We have 15 vehicles inside and 11 outside currently. It's a multi-million-dollar fleet. We do have a great maintenance program. We're on top of our staff to make sure they do maintain our vehicles properly, but we really need to get them inside. There's so many advantages of having vehicles inside. Mainly, we get more life out of them, and it really protects the investments we're making in these vehicles. They are very, very expensive these days. Just a few years ago, we have an operating budget of $150,000 for our dump trucks. Now they're about $375,000. And that's going to continue to increase, so it's really important that we protect that investment. Just to note, a Weston and Sampson study that was done for another facility, it looked at over the life of a new building and a fleet similar to our size, that if you keep vehicles stored inside, you can save $4 million. And Mike may add more to that issue in his presentation as well. To the right, we occasionally have flooding issues within the garage. We have a holding tank that's used outside for washing vehicles. This pipe is hooked up to that. Anytime vehicles come in during snow and ice operations, the snow melts. If they're getting fixed, the snow melts. During rainstorms, we have heavy winds. The winds will push the water underneath the bay door when we get this flooding issue. The capacity of the holding tank is limited. The pipe also gets clogged quite frequently. So certainly a challenge working when a mechanic is working on our vehicles inside. And just sort of to give you a scenario that we're faced against, sort of at the forefront right now because it's in the middle of the winter. When we have winter storms and we're sort of up against it, we do the best we can to prepare and get ready for something like that. And we're in prep road right now for a potential storm Monday or Tuesday. And it's really when our deficiencies are exposed during storms. And it's very challenging for our staff to attach the plows outside in the poor weather. We're constantly brushing off snow off some of the large trucks, which can be dangerous for the staff throughout the storm. Trucks break down frequently during storms. It's just the nature of that business. And an inadequate maintenance area makes it very difficult for our mechanic to repair these vehicles during storms. So these are really a lot of constant reminders we get on a weekly, if not a daily basis, that we're up against, and it's really why we're in front of you tonight, and really why we need to do something with our facility. And before I pass it on to Chief Burke, I just want to point out some of the advantages of the site. Sharing with the fire, first of all, is that it'll improve emergency coordination between us because we can directly coordinate with them. A lot of times we assist them during storms to remove trees or plow roads when they're responding to an incident. Also, it's important to note the transfer station is a very active area, one of the most active public facilities in town. A lot goes on there, a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving people. And things happen. We have fires there, we have spills, we have accidents with the public, with our staff as well. So the fire being adjacent to us, they certainly could respond to any incidents over there real quickly. Also, we would be able to have shared resources. We'd be able to use their bunks during storms, and also we could share meeting rooms as well. So just the one last thing I wanted to point to is that it's very difficult these days to get good, talented DPW workers at a facility. Very competitive. We're competing against other towns, and other towns have good facilities. It's a challenge for us to get those employees. So anything we can do to improve our facility would certainly help us out, attract employees and retain good employees. And so I think that's really important. I think I actually missed a slide. Did I hit 3? With the office? Oh, I did get it? Yeah. Okay, I'm good. Yeah, thanks. So, all set, thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul, and I echo Heather and Paul's sentiments with the group working together. It's been a grind, but I think, as you'll see, I think we're in a good place moving forward. Looking at the fire station downtown, we contracted to look at a run study. I wanted to look at a couple different locations, DPW being 1, the current location being 2, Water District being 3, and where the tennis courts used to be at the Henry T. Wing School as number 4. So we ran some simulations, and I found the DPW site to be the most attractive in terms of location, in terms of timing. There's a feature with Charles Street behind the station. Those of you that have been around town a long time, we used to cut through that road to go to the dump. Parts of that road are still there. We would reinvigorate that, put gates on either end, allowing for rapid response into the Galloping Hills neighborhood. The other thing is the ability to go north, south, east, west in a rapid fashion, and utilizing the highway to go both east and west. We do cover Phillips Road over the bridge. It would give us an advantage there. And then secondary calls, I tell people about this all the time. Don't necessarily expect the district that you live in that station is going to respond. They could be out. So having the north, south, east, west access for east and south sandwich from that location, when we did our run study, actually expedited and saved us time. So I feel very confident about the location and the advantages that it provides. Next slide, Heather, please. So here's the station, built right around 1952-ish. Gives you the exterior, just some of the photos. If you look at the garage bays and the size, fire trucks in 1952 were about the size of an SUV. Right now, our clearances, there's a great picture on the left, are under an inch in some aspects, and I made a comment to the group, when it snows, we have to shovel that piece, because even an inch of snow, if not shoveled, the truck can scrape the top. So you can see it's tight quarters, and one of the key pieces is when we did our ISO evaluation with the insurance industry is they wanted our ladder truck downtown because that's where all the big buildings are, but we can't fit it in this building, so we only get half credit for having it on Cotuit Road. So a new station will allow us to get maximum credit in the insurance industry for having the ladder truck in that particular district. You can see the next slide. Thank you, Heather. You can go to the next one. We can show the living quarters. So the third picture on the top to the right, the kitchen was renovated in 2016 when Chief Carrico and I was deputy at the time. Two things we had to do. We had to add a women's bathroom to the station. Believe it or not, we did not have that. So that bathroom addition allowed us to expand the kitchen a little bit. The second picture next to that is the day room sitting area. And then the bottom four show the living areas, which we've kind of crept through the second floor. In the gym, we walled off an area for female firefighters, so they'd have a private space. So we've kind of patched it along, and again, it's a 70-plus-year-old building, so with that come extreme challenges, as you can imagine. Next slide. So before Mike jumps in, just a couple of quick things. Again, on site location, response time study that we have done. And again, the relocation of both the ladder truck, and the other thing I will mention is we will do some reconfiguration of the department staffing, meaning the shift commander currently resides at Cotuit Road with myself and the deputy and the day staff. We would move that individual to this new station. What that affords us is, if the downtown ambulance goes out at this station, a second call, say at this building right now, would come from East Sandwich. You're looking at 7 minutes, give or take, but the captain would be up at the DPW location site, would be here in 2 to 3 minutes. So you'd have somebody actually showing up in the district. What does that mean for Cotuit Road? It means the day staff would respond to those second calls out in that district, so we're kind of redistributing to make sure we get people there within the allotted time. So I just wanted to make sure I made that clear. And other than that, again, thank you to the committee and everybody for their hard work, and I'll pass it over to Mike.
Can I just jump in before Mike to make some proper introductions? The balance of our committee are the consultants that we've brought on board, and 3 or 4 months of the work of the staff committee, the town committee, was doing the procurement of an owner's project manager and the design team. And we've worked with Mike Richard from Weston and Sampson and his colleague Christine, who is the architect on the team, Christine Kowalik-Grillo, along with Taylor, I almost gave you a new name, Taylor McDonald from Pomeroy Associates, who we have got a great relationship with, we work very well with, and has represented the interests of the town on multiple projects. We're really glad to have them here overseeing this project. Molly Pomeroy is also on the team. She's not here this evening, but we also have Todd Costa, who's a principal from KBA, who brings the public safety expertise, working with Chief Burke on the program and design needs there. So we have a really strong internal staff team, and we have great, capable consultants that are here to assist us. They're all here to answer questions, and I'll turn it over to Mike to take over the presentation. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you all. So as Heather mentioned, we went through multiple iterations of the concepts with the committee. What we're really looking for is to try to find that optimal layout and least cost impact, given some of the site considerations, those considerations being the multiple uses on site. You got the transfer station access, you got public works access, you have the chamber access, and now you have fire access, and that results in curb cuts that we also had to consider given Mass DOT road. We're also working through some of the features on the site in terms of grading, trying to find that optimal grading, as well as trying to find that optimal layout to get easy access out to Charles Street. Ultimately, we came down and to about 3 different options. And before finalizing the options, we recognized, and the committee recognized, that space is money. So we took one last chance to fine-tune the program. For that, we sat down with the different operators, being Paul for Public Works and Chief Burke for the Fire Department. We really wanted to just get to a better spot with the program that we're developing the concepts around. So following the meeting with Paul and Public Works, we're able to reduce the program by about an additional 11%. Likewise, we did that same exercise with Chief Burke, and we're able to reduce that program by about 4%, 4.5%. So at this point, we got to a spot where we felt comfortable with the program, and I think the operators of these facilities felt comfortable with this program, that it was at an optimal level without compromising the operations. From there, what we did is we went to meet with them again to talk about the different concepts that we discussed, and we really just wanted to hear from them and find out what are their key drivers here, given the concepts that we were looking at. One of the key features was that the knoll was the best place for the fire department. The reason being is this provides the best access to Charles Street, and it also gives the best opportunity for phased construction. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. We did not like the idea of the fire department being sunk down on the site. The site does slope off to the northeast. We didn't like the idea of the fire department being placed in a low area. And there was a sentiment that we didn't like the idea of mixing the Public Works ancillary operations with the fire department. Those ancillary operations being the fueling, the salt, the bulk material storage. To clarify that, we talked about different options about putting those up on the knoll and separate from the DPW operations. Nobody felt like that was going to be a good long-term plan. And then we put the Public Works down in that lower section to the north. Now I'm going to zoom in on the site and take a closer look at some of these spaces. So the fire department up on the knoll, like I said, placing the fire department up here gives us the best access to Charles Street. Not only that, this allows the Public Works operation to continue their operations in that area while the new Public Works operations is constructed. Public Works can then relocate into their new facility, and the fire department can start their construction. And by doing so, we could be saving upwards of $500,000 on temporary operations. Moving over to the Public Works facility, some of the things that were liked about this option was we're going to combine 2 curb cuts, right? The 2 curb cuts for the chamber. We're going to have one shared entrance now for the chamber and for the Public Works, cleaning up the access drives on Route 130. Well, as we enter the site, we have a lined intersection, which will give us great traffic control. And what also happens is we have street-facing offices and parking. The parking can be shared between Public Works and with the chamber. The street-facing offices, though, allows the town some flexibility in how you want to shape that for aesthetic purposes and get that to blend in with the region, versus the other operations, which will be behind the offices, that will be more industrial type setting because of the overhead doors, the large overhead doors in that area. This operation also allows secured yard area, right? There'll be a gated area controlling who can access that area and who cannot. Moving back out on this, what we also have is we have the ability to create, to optimize the grading. As I mentioned before, the site slopes off to the north-northeast. This allows us to give an upper level for the fire department, a mid-level for the employee offices, and a lower level for the yard area. This also allows us the opportunity to expand further to the north if we need to for the yard area. Also just wanted to talk briefly about what we've been seeing in terms of trends for municipal construction. This is a chart that shows competitive bid pricing of municipal bid projects, or publicly bid municipal facilities. And this chart goes from 2014 to 2024 and projects even beyond. This is all a very similar type structure that we're comparing here. But what this shows is the trends of what we're seeing in the marketplace. You can see from 2014 to 2016, it was relatively modest escalation, and from 2016 on to 2024, it was a very sharp increase in escalation. We do have an anomaly in year 2020. That was the year COVID hit. What happened there is everybody pulled their projects from the street. Nobody knew what was going to happen with the economy. What we had was one project that stayed out on the street, and they hit a great opportunity where it was a very competitive market before people realized that the economy was going to continue on strong. So I just wanted to share that with you, just so people can see what's going on with the municipal buildings market. So the key actions for consideration as we move forward is right now we're in the middle of schematic design. Schematic design is roughly a 25% design level, and the benefit of schematic design is while we might not have everything set on plans, we're gonna frame what the project looks like. It might come in plan form, it might come in narrative form, but what this gives us is the opportunity to give this information to an independent estimator and come up with an accurate cost estimate for the project. We're here tonight presenting to you just an update on where we stand. As we move forward on this project, we're going to continue to update this board up until we meet with the Finance Committee on February 25th. At that Finance Committee, what we intend to show is independent estimates that were completed by both the town, that is through the OPM, and an independent estimate completed by us. And that's not us that completes that estimate. We actually go out to an independent estimator as well. So you should have a good database of costs for this project. What is also happening, and we intend to have at the Finance Committee, is independent review of the existing conditions of those buildings. That is both the Public Works building and Station 1. And that's the end of the presentation. If there's any closing remarks from Paul or the chief or Heather or Bud, I don't know if anybody has anything to add that we missed.
To maybe make a couple of comments. One is an observation from many years ago, and that is before I was lucky enough to serve the town of Sandwich, I was working in another community doing some studies of a shared dispatch location. And I was lucky enough to meet the then Deputy Burke, who introduced me to the staff at the fire department, where the fire and police department shared a dispatch center at your former police station. And it was really stunning, one by the positivity of the staff that we have, how well they worked in a really unforgiving location, and then just how well they work together. And I really feel the same way about the Public Works staff now. So we have a really great team of individuals working in a location that really just simply doesn't meet the needs of the operations. We know how hard you worked to get the new public safety facility, and it really just makes an awful lot of sense to do the same thing for both of the remaining facilities to support the needs of the town in the long term. And it's clear from the work we've done on hazard mitigation planning that we can't sustain effective response in fire safety from the current location of Station 1. And this is an opportunity to bring them both together. And I was really taken by the conversations by by Chief Burke and Paul about the importance of having them located in a campus environment, not in the same building, and their ability to work on those sustained, long-term community service issues, whether it's a storm or something else. Their ability to work closely together in a secondary response location. And anyone that's been involved in long-term community responses to natural disasters knows that that work really is, it isn't the police department, it isn't the administration, it's the fire department and the public works department who are often working for months after an incident. So that really did impress me with that, the value of that for this particular project. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to share.
Just a couple of questions as we went through this. Ironically, the first one was from the last slide. The existing condition reports, do we really need to do that based on just a visual assessment of both buildings? I think the DPW kind of stands for itself. You know, the existing condition is a cost-saving measure. Do we need to do those existing condition reports based on, I think, the acceptance that both buildings are not great?
I think what we are hoping to be prepared to answer, and if anyone else wants to chime in, please do. If we are asked the question, you know, what would it cost to bring both of these buildings up to code and safety standard? So it isn't just to tell us what's going on with the facilities, it's to give us a range or order of magnitude to just take the as-is building and bring it to code.
Okay. And then the only other two things. One was I looked at the mechanic area on the DPW garage. That's going to be a shared area, correct, with the fire, the mechanic repairs?
No.
Is that?
So we're going to have our mechanic in our station, but if he needs to utilize space down below, he can, but he's got his own lifts, he's got everything that he needs to bring to the new station.
Okay. And then, okay, so you would be transferring the existing mechanic area to this station or to a different?
This one.
To this one. And then if we had to go back to a full-size ladder truck, would either of these buildings be able to accommodate that in a repair?
Yes. Yep, so repair-wise, for the ladder truck, with the height, we can actually do it on Cotuit Road if we squeezed it in there, but the height would allow him to put the truck up on the lifts, still have clearance to work inside underneath it.
And that's current apparatus or future apparatus if we had to go back to a
Current.
full-size?
So the current ladder truck we have now.
Would it, if we were forced to go back, hypothetically speaking, Spalding expands and we have to go back to a full-size ladder truck, would these buildings be able to accommodate a full-size ladder truck?
Yeah, so like a 105-foot
Yeah.
truck, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing.
And then the only other thing that, just for the public, this is probably more for the fire, but JJ, can you just reiterate to the public, like the flooding and the challenges and the risks that poses to you in response times if we had a coastal storm that flooded, Station 1, what that would look like for the town and, for an extent if there's damage,
Yep, what that would look like. So in terms of the location, we flooded out multiple times. What we try to do is move the apparatus over to the water district if we can, or to the other two stations until the tide resides. But we have issues with our equipment being flooded out also, so we try to put everything up above on the second floor if we can. But the reality is the storms we've seen, we are out of there for 8 to 12 hours potentially. And then, God forbid, there's water intrusion into the building, which has happened, but significant water intrusion, we're not going to be able to reoccupy that potentially. So that's my fear, is getting it out of the floodplain. And I think Heather mentioned the hazard mitigation plan was a great exercise to review the FEMA flood maps and the simulations and projections we can do now. And it just does not make sense to have this station where it is. And I think the smart move is to get it out of the floodplain, get it elevated up on that knoll, so we don't have to worry about that particular issue moving forward. But it is we have to reconfigure our whole response plan when there's a coastal storm with flooding. That's just because if you've seen flooding in that, it comes around both sides of the building. So we can't go left or right, so we got to pull everything out of there. We can't take the risk of salt water hitting that apparatus, $1 million, $500,000 trucks. So it is, we do have to adjust our game plans and really watch what the tides are going to be doing.
Patrick?
I just wanted to give people just a kind of a setting and recognize that coming to this wasn't new. When we did the renovation to our fire and safety approach years ago, our focus was cutting response time to South Sandwich and fixing the East Sandwich problem. And those were our two focused reasons for doing what we did previously. And we struggled at it because we knew we were leaving behind the village. And we were leaving behind our original main station. So this wasn't new. This was always sort of in the queue. We were going to have to deal with this. But, from a transportation standpoint, you just can't, you can't recognize how significant it is being at exit 2 to respond to the community's needs. That more than anything else for this is really a home run. If we could do nothing else but get it to that point, as you can see by this map, how fundamental that is to getting to everywhere in town, and we don't lose out on the excellent response time we've got in the village. So I just wanted to kind of put that setting in there that this wasn't new. The DPW, we know that's a half a century old problem. But dealing with that aspect of the fire problem was always there, and it's a fitting thing for us to do in conjunction with this. Thank you.
Indeed, we are about employee safety. We are about preservation of our equipment, but we're primarily about community response. And it's all about the safety of the 20,500 people who live in Sandwich today.
That's right. I got a couple questions. Sure. Heather, can you go back to the site plan? Okay. My question is, we're going to move the fuel facilities to the east in that back corner, right? Okay. Now, any vehicles that are going to get fuel, town vehicles or whatever, they're going to come in the entrance to the DPW, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, suppose that something happens out front here. God forbid, accident, whatever. There's no way for the highway department to get into the facility. If they're in there, something happens out the front, they can't get out. So why can't we put a driveway right across here? So if something happens, it'll only be used for the fuel people or whatever, or in an instance where something happens out front, they can come around in here and exit.
Yep.
And then the fire department getting fuel in the middle of the winter time, why have them go out on Route 130 where icy roads, traffic? Why can't they just come across right into their facility and put it back in? Does that make sense?
It absolutely does make sense. I think that's a great point, and that was something that I believe was brought up by Matt. That's something that we are exploring. There are there is some elevation changes there that we got to deal with.
Yep.
But that is something that we're certainly exploring right now. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. The other one I had is, all right, the new station that just got built out on Cotuit Road. In the wintertime, we had a heat problem in there, out in the apparatus bay floor. Several times, the ambulance had to be brought downtown because of the heat. Is that going to be a problem we're going to have again in this new building? I don't know if that's the answer for you, or
I'll take it.
engineer, or who?
No, I think we have had issues. A couple times we have not had to relocate the ambulance permanently. And I think with any project that you do, you learn lessons and apply those to the newer project. So knock on wood, and I say that with a cold spell coming here in the next 10 days, we have not had any issues at Station 3, but we're also learned a lot about how we would apply that to this new station.
Okay. Then I got one last question. I don't know if you probably don't want to hear it, but in the summertime, you got a southwest prevailing wind coming from the dump. Has any consideration been given to any smell coming out of that dump and coming into the fire station from the southwest prevailing wind on a 90-degree day? Anybody thought about it or anything? Or Paul, can you reiterate
Yeah.
on it? Or
My office is right there now, and I open the windows in summer. I don't have any issues with that. I would say there are berms surrounding the landfill as well. It's noise barrier and the smell barrier as well, but I personally don't smell anything, so I don't think it's an issue.
okay.
Thank you, Bob. And that is a good answer, Paul. And Todd, not to put you on the spot, but do you have any comments on the floor heating and et cetera?
The only thing I have is a comment. It's the first time excuse me, sorry. The only comment I have is this is actually, I think, the first time that I'm hearing about the issue with heat in the apparatus bay. It's not an it's not an uncommon thing, but I will absolutely get our design engineer of record on the hook to come out and see what can be done to offset that on some of those colder days. Absolutely. And see if he has any comments relative to how it was designed, or balanced is probably the more appropriate term, because we've often done that exact same system with no supplement heat and no issue. Closest one I know from the top of my head is Chatham, where I know I've been down there on a cold day outside, and the firefighters are in shorts and t-shirts in the bay itself. So.
Yep. I hear you about Chatham, and if all it takes is another look at the formula, we should be doing it, right, Todd?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get the engineers that on it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any further comments from the committee? Taylor, Matt? All good? Okay. Thank you all very much. Very informative. I hope the public appreciates all the work that's gone into it thus far. It's all about them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good? Okay. Moving on to old business. Recap of the January 13th, 2025 special town meeting.
I just wanted to touch base on a few things. Most importantly, to say thank you to the public for the support on the 8 articles that we had. A couple things that I know we're going to be working on very diligently over the next several months. One being on the so-called Water Infrastructure Investment Fund surcharge increase, which has to appear on the town election ballot in May. So I know Heather's going to spearhead a group that's going to work on doing some of the public outreach on different parts of the project. We're going to be looking at some of the sort of financial analysis, so we can give a couple of good examples if people ask questions about, you know, how that works and how it saves so much money for everyone in the long run, as opposed to doing everything with debt exclusions. So we're going to work on that. One of the other things, an article before it, I wanted to stress there were questions about that short-term rental inspection requirement that the state has in the development of a bylaw. So what I said at town meeting was correct in that the planning board's been working with our planning office on the bylaw, but what I should have clarified is it's a town bylaw, not a zoning bylaw. So because they're the group that's most familiar with working on those type of things and issues, especially related to inspections and registrations, they've been working on one, and once town council has looked at it and is comfortable with the language, it would actually be the select board that would have to hold a public hearing leading up to the annual town meeting and sign off on what you were comfortable with before it appeared in the warrant. So we'll be working on that, but we really want to thank the planning board and especially Leanne Drake in the planning office to oversee community development, just to try to address that need. Just trying to look at the list. Everything else I think was fairly straightforward. In a few seconds, we're going to act on one of the things that we're able to do because of the vote that was taken on Monday night. And that relates to the wastewater plant at the middle high school. So I'll hold off on that. But if there's any other questions about the special town meeting, Heather and I can try to answer those. But thank you again to the public for coming and for voting. I will say too, I think a lot of the things that we heard, we know what questions are, so we can tailor some of our outreach based on those questions. I thought Bob Guerin had a really good point. People need to know what our bigger long-term costs are other than wastewater. And I think without a doubt, on the town side, as was said right at the beginning, this really is the one last municipal building need. But I think we all recognize, the schools are going to have bigger needs, probably not a new building, but they are going to have needs about trying to properly maintain and keep the 3 buildings that they have up. So we are working on trying to get a consultant on board to give us an idea of those costs. Again, the square footage is there, very big. That will take a while to do. So I think it's fair to say, other than those 2 things, I can't really think of another large building need that we'll be looking at other than our wastewater work, which that will develop over time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, while Bud's on that point about the schools, I really want to express as a select board member my disappointment with the school for not replying to Mr. Johansson's inquiry about the money on question 1 on the ballot. I really think for the school to sit on their hands at that moment was not the appropriate response to the town meeting body, which is, it's our legislative body of our town. And it warranted some kind of a reply. And I just find it disappointing that wasn't. We've gone a long way to collaborate with them, to help them with their problems, and I think someone should have been prepared to answer that question.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I also agree with you, Pat. I thought the superintendent was going to get up that night and, give an answer to that question, and he didn't. So, you feel it should be still answered? In some way or form, it should be answered, that question. Yep, it was a good question. Never got answered. Okay.
I'm not disagreeing. We have no control over their responses, though. Okay. Recommended contract award for Sandwich Middle High School wastewater treatment facility upgrades and authorized town manager to sign.
Yes, so in November, we went out to bid for the upgrades to the Sandwich Middle High School wastewater treatment facility. The work that's needed there is very extensive. I think as was shared at town meeting, compared to what we thought we would have to do at a lot of these schools, the total cost is much, much lower. But it's still really critical for us to get these repairs done. And I think we all realize how difficult some of the larger picture issues we're trying to tackle at Joint Base Cape Cod, or even, all of our communities on the Cape are trying to clarify that whole issue about effluent discharge and outfall, and where that happens, and depending on Supreme Court decisions, is it all considered an ocean outfall, even if it's discharged on land? All that stuff is in play and is being looked at. So I think we all recognize, as fast as we want to move on this stuff, it's not going to happen as quick as we'd like. I'm pleased to say the schools are somewhere where we can take virtually immediate action, so that's a big plus. So we went out to bid, and again, this was to upgrade the system at Sandwich Middle High School. We received 3 bids ranging from just over 1.8 million to just over 2.4 million, and the low bidder at $1,827,947 was Weston and Sampson. Mr. Richard has nothing to do with their wastewater components. They're a huge company. The town charter requires any bids or any contract awards greater than $1 million needs the permission of the select board to award them. And I want to stress that it was critical that we get the boat on Monday to help us pay for portions of this. And so Weston and Sampson deserves a lot of credit because they honored their bid prices more than the time that was identified in the bid specs, and they basically said until we got to past town meeting, they would honor the bids, which is great. And I know I'm rambling, but I just wanted to also add, when we applied for how to use our $850,000 in ARPA funds that the county received, what we applied for was school wastewater improvements. So $850,000 will go towards this from the county funds, and then the rest will come from the WIF. Our engineers have been working, as you can imagine, just to do the bid specs, to do the analysis of the problems, how to solve them, the permits from DEP. We've spent, I think, about $150,000 on engineering to get to this point, just for the school. And then once we get going on this, they'll help oversee the construction, and the end date on the actual work is roughly 1.5 years from now. The reason that sounds long is some of this work can only take place when kids aren't in school. The vast majority of it will be done this summer. There's some other things that will happen probably over the next winter break and then finish up next calendar year. So it's great to sort of make progress on this.
Yes. Question? Yes, Patrick.
Once we have executed this project and it's complete, this plant needs to be operated by a licensed operator. How is that? How are we doing on that process? Or where is that?
Yeah, Wright Pierce could explain it a little bit better, because I think once construction's done, the contractor has to honor its proper operation for a certain amount of time. But you're right, as that goes to expire, our intent, and we've talked with the schools about it, and they support this, is to go out to bid and have a third party oversee the plant from then on. Yeah. There's all sorts of speculation on who might be interested in, how much time it would take, where it's, one relatively small facility versus a large town facility. It's probably not going to take, someone there 24/7, certainly.
Well, it's good. Like Weston and Sampson is also a vendor of operating plants.
Yep, and there's also the company that's working out at the base that would probably bid. I think good. All the wastewater work going on the Cape.
Yeah, we should get
some really good bids.
Good competitive look at.
Yes.
Agreed.
But that's a really essential part of this.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Without that,
huge. Yep.
It's really the operation of these plants is the paramount consideration.
And once we get those decisions from DEP on Oak Ridge and Forestdale, we have sufficient funds to just move on those as well. Yeah. Again, there's certain mechanical things that have to happen, and then probably deconstruct the old plants inside the treatment buildings. But we want to retain the treatment buildings, especially at Forestdale. That might be a pump station someday. So,
good.
And we do indeed have agreement from the school department. It's not just tacit agreement.
No, it's
agreement.
They fully supported us sort of taking the ball with this.
So just out of curiosity though, so they have care, custody, control of their property. We can't actually, do they have to actually be the bidding authority in order to conduct the work on their land or their property?
They gave us the okay for us to do it.
Okay. So they have to authorize. So
Yep.
people at home will realize, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how much control the school committee has over its grounds. I mean, they didn't let us put a fire station there.
And that's
Have I
under-
forgotten that? No, I haven't. But in any event,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's under Chapter 70, I believe?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch, yes.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay. You have to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay. Make a motion, we award a contract for the Sandwich Middle High School wastewater treatment facility upgrades project to Weston Sampson CMR Incorporated in the amount of $1,827,947 as received in November 19th, 2024, and authorize the town manager to sign the contract.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
This will feel good when it's done, because, I mean, it's a substantial thing that we finally got done on wastewater.
Okay.
Yeah.
FY 2026 budget update.
I promise this update will be quicker than last week, but I just wanted to show you. So again, there's a couple of the one-page summaries that we're so used to seeing. So the first page is what the final FY 25 numbers were, inclusive of what was voted on Monday night for the school budget. And I just wanted to show you what the second page is that has some green highlights on it. When you hear Bill, Heather, and I talk about bigger line items that are outside of our control that we haven't gotten any direction on whatsoever. So all I did was highlight the line items from FY 25 and show you that's what we're waiting for. So the annual meeting of the Mass Municipal Association is late next week. Typically, the governor comes and gives us a slight indication of what those might look like. But as the board so well knows, the final state budget typically isn't done till the end of July or mid-August. So we have a long way to go. We should know a little bit more in the next few weeks, but it's probable that when we make our budget presentation on January 30th, we still won't know some of those numbers. So we'll see how it goes, and hopefully things will be positive. I included what the budget cycle big picture dates were, and then also what the meeting dates were as have been scheduled so far. At Finance Committee meetings on Tuesday evenings through the winter. But the only other thing that I will stress, similar to what I did last week, just to give you a rough idea, if we just level service our budgets, include a couple of the smaller things that were left to be done on the FY 25 and beyond plan, and identify 4 or 5 significant operating cost center increases that are happening everywhere, and we properly address those, and then offset those increases by, for example, the $200,000 donation that I talked about earlier, a little bit better receipts on our ambulance fund. When you look at it, my guess is the base budget that I'll be recommending in 2 weeks, it'll be roughly just over 3.5% for that. And then if you wanted to, if the numbers go our way and we could find a way to do it and there's the support for it, and we wanted to bring the DPW annual maintenance amount up to that $2.6 million goal, we would roughly go to a hair, like a whisker over 6%. And I think it's something that once we know some of those numbers that were just highlighted in green, we'll be able to make a better decision on the second part. My guess is when you see the first part, the base just over 3.5%, there's not going to be a lot of questions about what those issues are, and I will highlight all those as part of our budget presentation. And I just wanted to stress, because we've been talking about it a lot lately internally, we first started talking about the last road bond that we had over 15 years ago. And if Patrick will remember, there was a goal at the time to ask like 1.2 million a year every year for 5 years or 6 years. And we did it 1 year, we didn't do it the next, we did it the third, and then it kept getting turned down. And so then we did a bigger road bond. But once that was done, so I mean, we've literally been talking about how can we find a way to come up with that amount of money, because it's such a priority for the board and for the finance committee. And if there could ever be a way to fund it within our normal budget and not need debt exclusions, I mean, I never thought we'd be able to do it, but I think we're getting close to be able to do it and still have a lot of that cushion that we talk about every year with the excess levy reserve. So you'll see all the numbers in 2 weeks, but things are looking pretty good.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Town Hall Annex disposition request for proposals update.
Just a quick update. We are essentially, ready to start making forward progress on this as soon as the board is ready. There's no pressure on that. There is some advertising that will take several weeks for us to initiate the marketing process. So whether you vote this week or another week, that's okay. Really a springtime horizon in the March-April timeframe is a good one anyway. The one update I did make from the last meeting after hearing some feedback was on page 3. There was a comment that really should have been in a different location. I think colors the intent of the board a little bit differently. So if you move to page 6, you'll see in yellow, I moved the statement that says, the town may consider an option to entertain one-way egress onto River Street, which will be factored into the impact analysis section, which really means that if there's a proposal that is so advantageous to the town that the one-way egress is a necessity of that use, that the board may consider offering that. It isn't something that we're saying, we want you to provide this. It really is related to an advantageous use. So it's in the right place now. If the board wants more time to take a look at the comparative analysis, you're certainly welcome to do that. The format that we use is almost identical to that we used for the wing school, and it's a process that's used widely across the Commonwealth. It's a very standard process, but it does take time on the marketing end. So when the board's ready to proceed, we are prepared to do so.
Okay, just one member, but I have a comfort with this. Any other comments, questions?
Would you, so am I hearing that you're more or less ready to go?
If the board were to vote this evening, I would ask for you to authorize us to proceed subject to town council review. They've already reviewed it, but I need their stamp on it.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, make a motion.
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we authorize the town manager and assistant town manager to proceed forward with the town hall annex disposition with an RFP proposal subject to town council approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockner, second by Mr. George. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chairman? I have none under old business.
Nope.
New business. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chairman? I have done at this point. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody here for public comment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, closing remarks. Well, if I may, please maintain those under attack in Eastern Europe, the conflict in the Middle East, the overall threats to world peace, as well as those who continue to be affected by natural emergencies in our thoughts and prayers. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Our next meeting is Thursday, January 30th, 7 p.m. here in Historic Town Hall. Have a good evening, everyone.